Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Saeeda Jaffar, and I'm your host on Journeys Unpacked today. Today, we're talking about retail, the absolute heartbeat of what we do day in and day out. And of course, to talk about retail, we have none other than Alison joining us today. Alison Rehill-Erguven, who runs Cenomi Centers. Cenomi Centers needs no introduction, but I'll give one anyways. Cenomi Centers is in 10 cities, 22 malls, 5,000 stores, and over 124 million footfall in 2023. That's a massive number.
Thank you.
That's a massive number. And Alison, you bring with you years and years of experience in helping manage this. A 25-year industry veteran, and you've worked in places all over the world, from US to Europe to China to Latin America to Middle East, Asia, you name it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little about your journey and what brings you to Cenomi Centers.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for having me. Yes, I have been in the retail real estate space for over 25 years. I started in the United States. I am American. And I started with two of the largest shopping center companies there, which is Simon Property Group and then General Growth Properties, which is now Brookfield. I was able to transfer into the international space. I was in the States for about 11 years. So the last 4 years of that was in the international markets that we were building at that time, which consisted of a business in Brazil as well as in Turkey. Through networking, the global financial crisis, you name it, I ended up working for a private equity firm based in London, who asked me to run their operations in Turkey. My husband happens to be Turkish, so there is some synergy and connection there. And with that company, I was there for about 12 years. That grew from Turkey to Turkey and Central and Eastern Europe. Then we created a joint venture in China with Macquarie Bank out of Australia. And that led me to take myself and the family from Istanbul, where we worked for about 7.5 years, to Shanghai. And we were in Shanghai for 5 years, which was phenomenal. Even through COVID, it wasn't that bad until the very end. And then it was in 22 where I started to get some phone calls, specifically for the Middle East, which I found fascinating. They were, all the different phone calls that came were just looking for some senior female leadership here, trying to change the perception, I think, of what was happening here. And the last phone call that I took was for this position, and here I am, just over 2 years.
Fantastic. So it's been 2 years, and look, I think it wouldn't be fair to say that the economy is thriving. It's doing much, much more than that. In the last 2 years, everything, retail, et cetera, in Saudi has just seen tremendous growth. And I'm sure you see a lot of that too. Help us understand a bit, this 124 million footfall that you saw in 23 that I'm sure is growing today. Who are these consumers? Where do they come from? Global, local? Paint us a picture.
Sure. So we, as you mentioned, there's 22 centers today. We are in 10 cities. We touch about 80% of the population. And the majority of the customers that we have today are Saudis. And we are catering to their needs. We are using research to ensure that we're being relevant and providing them the tenant mix that they want. But there are tourists that are coming, to your point. And so one of the things that we are looking at is how do we continue to evolve the existing portfolio that we have today, and how do we build for the future? The future of what the Saudi consumer would expect and want, as well as this growing tourism that will most definitely be here. And so in terms of that growth story, we have two assets that we are bringing to the market at the end of 2025. One is known as Joharat Jeddah, and one is known as Joharat Riyadh. And as you know, Joharat means jewel. So we lovingly call them the jewels inside.
Very nice.
And they are different than what we've built before. We do have some of the top performing malls in KSA today, whether that's Mall of Arabia, Nakil Mall Riyadh, Mall of Dahran. But these are of a different caliber and of a different scale. They're bigger. They have different features in them. We're building on an international best class basis. That's the foundation. And we're pretty excited about that.
Well, we're excited too. I'm looking forward to seeing the malls and walking through those.
Mm.
And it sounds like those malls are going to be the ones that are really going to target that luxury segment, right?
Yeah.
That 25 billion roughly dollar luxury market that exists in Saudi. Is that the plan?
That is absolutely the plan. Both of these assets are not only building for the future of Cenomi, but it's also building for the future of what we believe the Saudi consumer wants, and to elevate our game on an international level. These types of assets don't exist in the kingdom today. And so to give you some examples of some of the different components, you will have distinct luxury precincts in each of them. Jeddah specifically will have over 60 luxury brands bringing their flagship experience to the malls. And what I mean by that is they will be much bigger in size. They will, be being able to provide a full range of offer and not just, bags or scarves or accessories. So we're very, very excited about that. But beyond just the luxury segment, it'll also have a higher spec on design. The materials that we use will be better. More defined and refined dining, introduction of food halls for us for the first time, internationally IP-led entertainment, digitally immersive experiences, and the list goes on and on. But on luxury specifically, also the services that we're looking at are important. So we're looking at VIP lounges, personal shopping, valet drop-off, etc. The Joharat Jeddah specifically, its location is quite fantastic, frankly. And if you know anything about real estate, it's location, location, location.
Absolutely right.
So we capture approximately 90% of the high net worth individual with that location, and we're 10%. We're 10 minutes from the airport. So there is another connection to tourism. For Riyadh specifically, again, located incredibly well. We're in the heartbeat of the downtown area. We are supported by 3 different major roadways. We're across the street from one of the best performing office markets. And we're also across the street from the diplomatic quarter. And that asset specifically captures about 65% of the high net worth spend, in the city today. So super, super exciting times.
Yes, it definitely sounds like they're both going to be very strategically located and beautifully designed and curated experiences. So definitely look forward to visiting them whenever they're open.
Yes, I hope you do.
Absolutely. And speaking of the future, right? I mean, you mentioned a couple of times building for the future, catering to the future. There are few countries in the world that have as large a Gen Z base as Saudi. And the Gen Z consumer is a very different consumer. They're digitally native. They're much more used to getting things in a different world than perhaps some of the older consumers are. So how are you catering to those consumers?
Yeah, no, I would take one step back and say, for those of us that are not Saudi and are here, and I would call it privileged enough to work here, it's an incredibly exciting time to be here. And the metrics, the demographics that we're dealing with are on par actually to a lot of emerging markets. You see a lot of the majority of the population under the age of 35 or 40, and this is no different.
Right.
I would say some key differences though are Saudis are incredibly well traveled.
Yes.
Well educated, and as you mentioned, digitally savvy. And so we need to make sure that we're tapping into that. It's one of the reasons why you build the new jewels, because they know what's out there. We need to bring it back home, and we need to capture that spend also back home. But on the digitally savvy piece, it's one thing to ensure that we are merchandising properly. We use research, we use data, we use visa data, we use MADA data to ensure that we are understanding where the where's the real being spent, and then trying to merchandise accordingly to that. But we are going to amplify, especially in 2025, our social media presence to ensure that we are, creating some engaging content, working with influencers, like really speaking to and making a connection with that incredibly digitally savvy young Gen Z customer.
Interesting. So it's that phygital experience, right? That's not, it's neither fully here, neither fully there. It's just an interesting combination of everything.
Yes.
And that is what the Gen Z consumer is, and it's fantastic. Excellent. One of the things I've always wondered is as you walk into a mall, as I walk into a mall, and I often do perhaps a bit more than I should, but as we walk into a mall, there's a beauty, there's a harmony of how stores and categories and F&B outlets and experiences are curated.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not haphazard, but there is really a method to it.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel it as a consumer. I probably cannot articulate it more than that, but you do feel it, and you know when it's done well and versus when it's not done well, and you know when it's relevant to you versus when it's not. If I just go back to again 124 million footfall, how do you create that coherent, relevant, personalized experience for your consumers that enter your malls consistently and in an innovative way?
I will come back again to the research piece. So if we don't know our consumer, and if we don't understand how they want to spend their time, which is valuable, and their money, which is valuable to us, then we will not be relevant. So we look at on an annual basis, and we're doing it right now as we're building our budgets for 2025. We're looking at where is that spend coming from, and then what we do is over time, when we can, you evolve the tenant mix to ensure that you are remaining, to your perfect word, relevant to the consumer, so that they keep coming back. The 124 million last year of visitors, that was a record for us ever. And this year, we're already 5% ahead of that. So I'd like to believe, thank you very much, I'd like to believe that what we're doing is resonating and is providing that relevance that they're looking for.
And do you see a change or a mix in what the consumers were spending on versus what they are spending on now?
Yeah, we do. So first I'll talk about actually our own percentages. So a few years ago, not that many years ago, our average breakdown would have been about 70% retail, meaning fashion, heavy fashion accessory, and then 30% entertainment, leisure, maybe some services potentially. And that mix and shift has evolved to approximately 62-38. So it's about an 8-point shift in more leisure, more entertainment, more food, more service, gyms, etc. And our goal is to get that to more of a 60-40 split. And then depending on the asset and its catchment, potentially even a 55-45. With the advent of online shopping, which is, my greatest nemesis, we have to ensure that we are constantly evolving and providing more experience and more reasons to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see that bifurcation, right? There's shopping because it's a utility, it needs to happen. And perhaps the experiences, it's more about efficiency there versus there's the shopping and there's the commerce, which is much more experiential. And there, it's not necessarily about efficiency, it's about the experience and how it makes me feel.
Absolutely.
And how it provides for me. So fully agree. And I think we see that. And we see that similar shift away perhaps from the more traditional retail categories and consumerism to more experience-led. So that resonates very well.
Absolutely.
And we'll see. I think that shift will probably continue over the coming years, and it will be fun to curate that for the future consumer.
It can be fun, especially fun for females. Beauty is one of these key categories that just keeps growing and growing and growing. And that's just exciting. It's exciting to see. And it's a fabulous way to evolve that mix, because the way beauty handles its store fit outs and its experiences and its exclusivity and collaborations, it just makes the environment so much richer.
Yeah, fully agree. Now, in the backdrop of this, right, and that consumer that is in the mall, that shows up day in and day out, there are so many choices that this consumer has. It's online, it's offline, but that's just one part of it. With the advent of online, I also, as a consumer, have the option of buying something from the US, from Australia, you name it, right? In this world, in this increasingly complicated but also interesting world for the consumer, how do you create loyalty with your consumers?
So, look, we've done a lot of research on loyalty, and we have put out our first rewards program at the beginning of last year. The research tells us that I believe it's more than 70% of the Saudi population has at least one rewards program that they belong to. And as I mentioned, we used that data, and we knew that we needed to have a loyalty program connected to our retailers, to our assets, to be a good partner. And we launched 1.0. We're calling it 1.0 in Q1 of last year. And I believe we had about almost 1 million signups, for that. It was a very quick engagement. However,
that's remarkable.
It wasn't an ongoing active engagement. And so we had to take a really hard look at what we had built and what we had done. And there was a lot of friction in the system. It did not have a user-friendly experience. And, the best thing you can do is try, and maybe it's not a failure, but you try and you see what went wrong and you try to make it better. So what we're in the process of doing now is launching 2.0. And what we've done is we've taken a much harder look at the user experience. We'll be launching it together with a mall app. So we will have an all-encompassing Cenomi Mall app, which will, provide lots of different services and information. And then we'll have the loyalty embedded in that. And, it's got to be much more about earn and burn. Because lots of loyalty programs can do that. We need to ensure that it's a seamless experience, that it's incorporating, personalized, customized content and offers, so that, they feel we're making the connection, as well as, tagging in now some of the services that we can provide, whether that's, free parking or VIP lounge or, special offers, et cetera. So it's much more about making a connection and creating the loyalty, actually, that we're all striving for. Versus just a very mechanical earn and burn scenario. And now with Visa as one of our strategic partners, I believe that we're also using the Visa Merchants Loyalty Solutions as part of our platform, which is going to actually help us even, I think, more quickly offer what we need to offer in a more enhanced and engaging way.
Well, that's fantastic. And you're right. I think consumers are so increasingly looking for loyalty, but not loyalty for loyalty's sake, but more personalized loyalty, consumer-friendly loyalty, easy to use loyalty. And I think our markets will probably get to some of the other markets where on average a consumer has, we were just talking about 4 or 5 different loyalty programs that they're actively a part of. So I think it's great that you guys are getting in early on. You're getting in and creating a compelling experience and hopefully a fulfilling proposition that keeps the consumer engaged and happy.
And I think that, we're trying to take a more holistic view of what loyalty means this time. And it can't be static. And I think that was part of the missed opportunity in last year. So it will constantly be evolving. It will constantly be adding new features. We will be linking credit cards to it at some point next year, as well as launching our co-branded credit card with Visa, which will be fantastic and a huge value add to the whole program.
Absolutely. I'm truly excited about that because I think that's one of the best ways to engage with a loyal consumer, but also reward a loyal consumer for their loyalty. So I'm equally excited about our partnership on that. And I look forward to when the co-brand launches and we go to the Jawahir, either in Riyadh or in Jeddah. And we have some fun with it.
I would add one more thing to that. One of the things that we have, but we don't have an in-depth look at is the data on our consumer. And so with our loyalty program, with the co-branded credit card, strategic partnership, we're going to have such better insights into our consumer and how they are spending and how they like to spend their time. And it'll just make that curation of customization all that more, hopefully, valuable.
Absolutely. Right. So you give the consumer offers that are relevant to them at a point in time that is relevant to them.
Exactly.
Fully agree. Fully agree. Now, we can't really talk about loyalty and retail and anything visa related without talking about payments.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about payments in general, right? Because payments are in Saudi are probably one of the most sophisticated in the world. This is a tap economy. 98+% of face-to-face transactions are contactless. I mean, it's just the numbers are sometimes staggering. The use of pays is really, really high. So share with us a little bit how you see consumers paying, how you see their behaviors evolving, but also equally, where do you still see some of those pain points that you think we need to spend more time focusing on and fixing as we go?
So, the first time I saw such a contactless payment environment was in China, and I was shocked.
Yes.
And in some instances, you couldn't even shop unless you had the WeChat platform on your phone connected to your credit cards.
Yes.
You literally were at a standstill at the register
Yes.
if you didn't have it. And then what I always found astounding living in China is how far behind the United States was, frankly, in that entire, app and tap environment. So when I came to Saudi, it was very familiar and very refreshing. And back to that, being digitally savvy, it wasn't all that surprising, actually, that they are such an early adopter of such great technology. I think Apple Pay is probably one of the most beloved, apps that are used at the register today. But one of the other things we're looking at is to try to provide, in terms of friction, I think we see the majority of our payments actually happening in an online tap, environment. But sometimes you'll have a purchase that might be, a bit beyond what somebody can actually afford at that moment. So we have also partnered with a company called Tabby, which is a buy now, pay later.
Yes.
And
a good Visa partner.
Yeah, there you go. And a great Visa partner. We have found that about 25 to 30% of the purchases at our malls today are actually happening in an environment that utilizes a buy now, pay later. In Cenomi Retail, we have one store called Aleph, which is our strategic partnership with Apple as their reseller here in the kingdom. And they have an online platform as well. And 75% of those purchases that happen online happen in a buy now, pay later environment because they're expensive.
75%.
75% of the online purchases have a buy now, pay later utilization rate.
Wow.
So it's fantastic that we can bring those solutions, to help remove some of that friction in terms of spending.
Fantastic. Very interesting. If you now look a little bit towards the future, what do you see as perhaps some of the biggest opportunities and also some of the biggest forces shaping retail as we go?
It was probably almost 2 decades ago when, and I was in this business then, where online shopping was right on the forefront. And I was in the United States at the time, and it was death of them all. That's all the headlines were saying. And that lasted almost a decade.
Yeah.
The funny thing is what I'm seeing now in terms of a lot of the press that's coming out is that not only did we survive, but we evolved. And in some cases, not all, we thrived. And why is that? Because of paying attention to the signs, doing the research, creating the experiences, and just having to pivot, frankly, because I can't compete with online shopping. I can't compete with its convenience or the vast amount of choices that you can have in about 5 minutes. But I can complement it.
Absolutely.
And I mentioned to you earlier, I was at a conference earlier this year, and I really do believe that being physical is our superpower. It really is. It's our USP, because you cannot taste something online. You cannot feel something online. You cannot necessarily experience and make a connection. You can through a screen, but not a human feeling connection. So we have that human touch. I think the other thing that we can do is ensure that we are embracing how we can complement this online purchase. Maybe it's click and collect. Buy now, pick up in store. Let's be a better partner to our tenants to ensure that we're providing to them maybe some of the services that they need, or some collaborations that they need to ensure that they're, the consumer itself is getting this full omni-channel experience. Our research also shows us that 70% of the Saudi consumer expects a frictionless, seamless omni-channel experience. So it's a tall order, and we need to deliver on it. And I think the other thing that the physical environment can do is create a little bit of a FOMO attitude. We have this fantastic circus right now at Nakil Mall Riyadh, which has been sold out for 1 month straight, and they've just extended till the end of the year. It was supposed to be a 2-month gig. It's now a 4-month gig. And so it's been a phenomenal success. So it shows you that Saudis are craving experience and entertainment. And, we've also just established last month our own business development department. It was a subset of leasing, and now we've made it its own department. And what this department focuses on is all of the strategic partnerships, collaborations, exclusives, pop-ups, sponsorships. That is a big part of the business, because if I can create the exclusivity or emotion to get you to come, that's half the battle.
That's so
then
true.
I need to give you a reason to stay.
Indeed, it comes a full circle, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this move towards the services, towards experiences, dovetails very, very nicely with your superpowers of being physical.
Yes, exactly.
Fantastic. Now, I know we have a few rapid fire questions for you. So I'm going to read them off, and, this is going to be first thing that comes to mind. So we're going to put you a little bit in the hot seat here.
Okay.
Let's see how you do. And the headline is, what are your favorite Cenomi experiences?
Cenomi experiences. Okay.
So your favorite movie theater?
Movie.
Of course. Why would there be another?
Yeah.
Your favorite restaurant or cuisine?
Paul. I eat the same salad every day.
Really?
I really do. Yes. It's just a lovely salad.
They have amazing bread too.
Yes, they do.
Paul.
Actually,
very
try
good
not to
place.
eat the bread though.
Then what's the point of the salad? Your favorite local brand?
That's an interesting one. There's a skincare line that was just given to me called Jayla. I'm not exactly sure. I believe it's out of Jeddah. Very lavender based and oriented, but it's homegrown and crafted, and it's beautiful, and it's a new favorite of mine at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, I love skincare. I'm obsessed.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I'll make sure I try it out. Excellent. And now, possibly the most important question of the last hour. What's your favorite payment method?
Apple Pay. Visa, of course.
Of course.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Alison.
Oh, thank you so much. My pleasure.
Until next time. Goodbye.